Hey guys, it's Lucky here, and today we're going to be going over the Stamina Dragonknight. Today I'm going to be giving you a build that I guarantee can do every piece of content in Elder Scrolls Online. You can solo and do everything. You can get into a group and do everything, and that includes veteran content, veteran DLC content, and veteran hard mode content. This build can do it all. Last patch, this was one of the most popular builds I put out, and I don't think anything's going to change there this patch. I had said that the Stamina DK was one of the, if not the strongest solo class in the game, and I'm excited to report that that's still the case. ZOS made quite a few changes to the way gear works in the game, and they buffed some skills and nerfed others, so this build is rolling with the punches and ending up stronger for it. Yes, that's what I said, it's even stronger than it was last patch. And then throw on top of that the fact that Dragonknight itself received a buff this patch. So let's get into it. In this video, I'm going to cover the race, the mundus, the attributes, the consumables, the gear, skills, rotation, passives, and champion points that you're going to need to set this character up. Literally everything you need to know is going to be covered in this video. Once you're done watching it, you'll know everything there is to know about the Dragonknight and the way it works. As always, I'll put a link to the written guide down in the description below so that you can refer to that for all of the nitty-gritty details such as armor traits and enchants. If you're a new player, be sure to listen to the video a couple of times while you're playing on the character, as I'm going to be giving you a lot of information that can be hard to soak up in one watch. Okay, so first things first, the race. You can't go wrong with Dark Elf or Orc. Great runner-ups being Khajiit and Wood Elf. And then finally, Redguard if you just want incredible sustain. For the Mundus, we're going to use Lover when soloing and Thief while in a group. For the attributes, we're going to put all 64 points into Stamina because that's how you do the most damage. You want that Stamina pool to be as big as possible because that does in fact determine how much damage each ability that you cast does. As for our consumables, for the potion, we're going to be using Essence of Weapon Power whenever we're doing something difficult. This is going to give us major brutality, increasing our damage by 20%. It's going to give us major savagery, increasing our crit chance. And it's also going to restore stamina and give us major endurance, increasing our regen by 30%. In other words, this potion is incredibly powerful, but it can be a little bit costly. So feel free to use the cheaper Essence of Stamina potions whenever you're doing something easy or something that's not terribly difficult. As for the food, we're going to use Lavafoot Soup. This is a best in slot food that you can use from level 1 to 1001. It scales with your level and it's amazing the whole way through. It gives you 5,000 stamina, which increases your damage substantially, and it also gives you 500 stamina regen, making it second to none when it comes to resource management or a stamina DPS. Okay, so let's talk about the gear that we're wearing on this character. We're going to be running Pillar of Nirn on the front bar and the jewelry. Pillar of Nirn was one of the proc sets that benefited greatly from being given the capability to crit this patch. This is really bringing up the damage floor for new players, allowing them to hit a lot harder than they used to without having a perfect rotation, while still allowing veteran players to do insane damage. Honestly, I can't recommend this set enough. If you want another dungeon to pair with that on the body, you can use Zogvin. Zogvin is a fantastic set for both critical chance and critical damage, and it gives you a little bit of penetration to boot, which stamina tunes tend to need. If you want to wear a trial set on the body, then you can't beat Reli. Reli does require you to be consistent with your light attack weaving, but if you are, you're rewarded with a very sizable dot on your enemy. For the monster set, we're going to be wearing one piece of Stormfist. One piece Stormfist is going to give you 124 stamina recovery. When you're soloing, you're going to put the Ring of the Bell order on, so you're only going to get the one piece bonus. When you're not soloing, you can wear two piece Stormfist to get an insane proc damage bonus from the two piece bonus. A hand comes out of the ground, grabs the enemy and explodes, doing a ton of damage. It's a great looking set. It feels good to use. And the one piece bonus is fantastic for your sustain. On the back bar, we're going to use the Maelstrom Bow. This is going to give us a massive AoE dot that we can throw down from range, and it's going to make sure that we can always be attacking the enemy even if mechanics push us away from it. And as I touched on earlier, when you're soloing, you really can't go wrong with the Ring of the Pale Order. Throw this on one of your ring fingers and move the piece of gear that was here onto your shoulder so that you can maintain the 5-piece bonus of Pillar while also being able to use the Ring of the Pale Order. Ring of the Pale Order brings life back into you based on how much damage you're doing. It's a life leech ring. And basically what that means is anytime you've got dots on the enemy, you've got life coming in. And this build has a lot of dots tucked into it. So you will always have tons of health coming back from each and every one of those, making you nearly unkillable. All right, so that covers the gear. Now let's jump into the skills. On the front bar, the first skill we're going to be using is called Venomous Claw. Venomous Claw is an insane dot. And the very important thing to note about this dot is it does more damage every time it ticks. It says there, the poison seeps into the target and deals increased damage the longer it lasts, dealing 20% more damage every 2 ticks. So the first tick of this dot is going to be nice. But the last tick of this dot is going to hit like a freight train. So it's very important that you put this dot on the enemy and then do not reapply it early. Let it tick all the way through and expire so that last tick hits, the one that hits like a freight train, and then reapply it. And you want to make sure, especially when fighting a large enemy, that you always have this dot on the enemy because it is going to be hitting so hard. And again, remember, 20% of the damage you do with this ability is coming back into you as health because of the Ring of the Pale Order, making it very hard for you to die. All right, the second ability is one of the changes that we made with this patch. Zos has buffed Carve, which means we're going to use Carve instead of Brawler because Carve now gets a portion of a Brawler shield. So you get the protection of Brawler, but you also still get the dot from Carve, and they made it so the dot stacks up to 3 times. So it's a substantial sized dot once you start spamming this ability. All in all, this is now a really nice blend of what Brawler is and what Carve used to be, making it the superior choice for two-handed spammable. The third ability on the front bar is going to be Executioner. This is the ability we're going to use when the enemy gets down to around 30%. As long as we don't have a lot of things attacking us, this is going to do a ton of damage to the enemy, up to 400% more damage when they're low on health. So if you're only fighting one thing, go ahead and feel free to start using some Executioner swings on it instead of your Carve. This will become your spammable at around 30%. If you have multiple enemies attacking you, it's going to be better to keep using your Carve because it's safer and because it's going to be hitting all of them. The fourth ability on our front bar is Stampede. Stampede was also buffed. It's a mobility ability, it's a gap closer, and it's an insanely large AoE dot to all enemies near the target. So this ability ends up being great as a mobility ability. It ends up being great for your single target damage and your AoE damage. It's an ability that I think is worth putting on just about every stamina build right now. The fifth ability on the front bar is Flames of Oblivion. Flames of Oblivion is going to draw from our Magicka pool, and the nice thing about this is it's going to be great for our sustain. You'll notice that this build actually has a few abilities that cost Magicka instead of stamina, which is one of the reasons it's going to be so hard for you to run out of resources, especially when you're using your ultimate, but we'll get into that. Flames of Oblivion is a 15-second dot, but it only releases damage every 5 seconds. So the way you need to treat this ability is just like the one we talked about first, Venomous Claw, because if you recast it early, you're going to miss one of those substantial ticks of damage. So this is another dot where it's very important that you never reapply it with 1 second left. You always want to let it get that last second, that last big tick of damage, and then reapply it after it's fallen off. Otherwise, if you reapply it 1 second early, you're missing out on 33% of the damage that this dot was supposed to do. Another great thing about Flames of Oblivion is that while slotted, you gain Major Prophecy and Major Savagery, increasing your weapon and spell critical rating, right? This is a buff that you get from your potion, but because you have this ability here, you even have that buff when you're not using the potion. The one thing to know about this buff from this ability is that when you go to the back bar, you lose the buff, right? Because that ability is not on the back bar. So that's why it's worth it to use those Essence of Weapon powered potions when you're doing difficult content, because you're going to get Major Brutality and you're going to get this buff on both bars, as well as your stamina and your endurance. But it's nice that you have it here on the front bar where you spend most of your time, even when you're not using that potion. The final ability on the front bar is the ultimate, Flawless Dawnbreaker. This is going to be the ultimate that you use when you need more resources or when you just want a bit of extra damage and your back bar ultimate isn't up yet. The back bar ultimate costs a ton of ult charge, whereas Flawless Dawnbreaker only costs 125, so you'll be able to get this one pretty quick. And as a Dragonknight, your ultimate is a form of your resource management. Whenever you use your ult, you get resources back. The more the ult costs, the more resources you get back. And this is intended to be one of the ways that the Dragonknight maintains its resources. So once you start getting low on stamina, you can pop your ult, boom, you're back up to full stamina again. Flawless Dawnbreaker does good damage, and it also increases your weapon and spell damage by 300 for 20 seconds after you use it. So it's a nice burst of damage, and then it gives you a damage buff for 20 seconds after using. Great ability. Plus there's some very nice passives from the skill line that we'll get into that are also increasing the damage for all the abilities on this bar. We'll talk about that more when we get into passives. The first ability on the back bar is Endless Hell. This is a very large AoE dot that is buffed by our Maelstrom Bow. The Maelstrom Bow makes it so that the Endless Hell ticks of damage do more damage than the tick before them. So each tick does more damage than the last, kind of similar to how our Venomous Claw is working on the front bar. This means that just like Venomous Claw and Flames of Oblivion, you always want to let this dot expire before reapplying it because the last ticks of damage are the ones that are hitting the hardest. The second ability on the back bar is Noxious Breath. Noxious Breath is a fantastic AoE dot, and it's going to apply Major Breach to all of the enemies that it hits. Major Breach is incredibly important, especially while soloing. This is going to substantially increase the damage you're doing to the enemy because their resistances are reduced by 6,000 by this dot. Always make sure you have Noxious Breath on large enemies when you're taking them down. Try to get this dot on the enemies earlier than later because getting Major Breach on them sooner than later is going to increase all of of your damage that happens thereafter. The third ability on the back bar is going to be Resolving Vigor. Resolving Vigor is our battle heal. You basically can't die when this heal is ticking, and it lasts for 4 seconds. It's going to heal 17,000 health over those 4 seconds. So over 4,000 health per second coming in. Basically, if you feel like you're in trouble, pop your Resolving Vigor and then do a dodge roll. By the time you stand up, you'll be full health again. The fourth ability on the back bar is Volatile Armor. The nice thing about Volatile Armor is that it's a multifunction ability. It's going to do a lot of things for us. It's going to give us Major Resolve, increasing our resistances by 6,000 for 20 seconds. So that's a long buff, and it's giving us Major Resolve, which is a fantastic buff. This is the opposite of Major Breach, right? So it's increasing our resistances by 6,000, which means we take substantially less damage while we have this on us. Also, it's releasing a spray of spikes around us, dealing damage over 10 seconds to all enemies nearby. On top of that, the armor returns damage to any enemy that hits it, and it costs Magicka instead of stamina. So it's great for our damage, it's great for our survivability, and it's great for our sustain. The fifth ability on the back bar is Consuming Trap. Consuming Trap is just a nice single target dot that has some great utility to it. It does a ton of damage to one target, and when that target dies, you're going to get thousands of health, Magicka, and stamina back. Consuming Trap will be your flexibility. If there's another ability somewhere that you wanted to use, Consuming Trap is probably the one I would let go of. The final ability on the back bar is Standard of Might. Standard of Might is the ultimate that we're going to use if given the choice. The only reason we wouldn't use it is maybe we're out of resources, but we don't have the 250 ultimate we need to cast it again yet. So in that case, we're just going to pop the front bar ult to get our resources back. But given the choice, we will always use Standard of Might. Not only does this do a large AoE circle of fire that's damaging everything within it, it's also going to increase our damage by 15%. That is a very sizable buff for any class. In fact, this is one of the best ultimates in the game. But not only that, it's going to reduce the damage we take by 15%, making us even more tanky. So you throw this down in a boss fight, you're doing more damage, they're doing less damage. It's just a great ultimate. If you ever use this in battle, all 3 of your resources will be full after you press the button because of your Dragonknight passives. And we'll get into those now. The first passive is Combustion, which is going to restore 1,000 Magicka or stamina whenever you burn or poison an enemy. This can happen every half second, and you're going to constantly be proccing these because you'll constantly be burning things with your fire skills, and you'll constantly be poisoning things with your poison skills. This is great for our sustain. It's also increasing the damage of burning and poison status effects by 50%. The second passive is Warmth. When you deal direct damage with an Ardent Flame ability, you reduce the enemy's movement speed by 30%. This means whenever you use your AoE Noxious Breath on a group of enemies, they're all going to be moving 30% slower for 3 seconds. The third passive is Searing Heat. Increases the damage over time of our Fiery Breath, Searing Strike, Dragon Strike, and standard abilities by 33%. In other words, this is going to increase quite a few of your abilities' damage by a lot, so definitely grab it. The fourth and final passive from this line is Whirled and Ruin, which is going to increase the damage of our flame and poison attacks by 5%. Grab it. Under Draconic Power, the first passive is increase the amount of damage you can block by 10%. That's great for our survivability. We've got Burning Heart next. While a Draconic Power ability is active, your healing recovered is increased by 12%. We will always have one of these abilities passive because we are using Volatile Armor. We have Elder Dragon, which increases our health recovery by 5% for each of these abilities slotted. We've got one Volatile Armor on the back bar, so whenever we're on the back bar, we get a 5% bonus, and it increases the range of our melee attacks by 2 meters. This effect only applies to instant cast attacks with a 5-meter range, so it's just giving us a little bit more range on some of our abilities. And then finally, we have Scaled Armor, which increases our physical and spell resistance by 1650. It's just a nice, solid resistance gain. Definitely grab it. Under Elder Heart, we have Battle Roar. When you cast an ultimate ability, you restore 51 health, 50 Magicka, and 50 stamina for each point of the ultimate's cost. So if you cast your Standard of Might right when you get the enough ult charge for it, right when you have 250 ult charge, you're going to be getting 12,000. Or if you happen to be fully charged on your ult charge, you'll have 500 and you'll get closer to 24,000 stamina and Magicka back when you use it. Not only that, you'll get nearly the same amount of health as well. So you can see how this is going to be fantastic at keeping yourself alive and keeping your resources topped off. The third passive is Mountain's Blessing, and this is where the flexibility on the back bar comes into play. If you wanted, you could use Molten Weapons as your fifth ability on the back bar instead of Consuming Trap, and you could take advantage of this passive here, which says you're going to get Minor Brutality anytime you have that ability active. You're also going to get 3 ultimate while in combat. The final passive here is Helping Hands. When you cast a non-stamina costing Earthen Heart ability, you restore 990 stamina. This will only apply if you decide to use Molten Weapons as your fifth ability on the back bar. Next, we're going to be using a two-handed ability, a two-handed maul to be exact. We're going to be using the maul because of the heavy weapons passive, which says maces increase our armor penetration by 3,300. That's going to be a significant boost to our damage while soloing or in group content as a stamina tune, as we often find ourselves underpenning. We're going to grab all of the passives here though, because they're going to be great for our sustain and our damage output on a two-handed weapon. Same thing for the bow. We're going to grab all of the passives on the bow because this is going to increase our damage and our sustain while using a bow. Also, we're going to grab hasty retreat here at the bottom, which says whenever you roll dodge with the bow out, you get 30% increased move speed for 4 seconds. This is nice for zipping around town or in between battles. If you want to get from A to B faster, go ahead and pull the bow out, do a roll dodge, and move 30% faster. As a result, we are going to be wearing 1 or 2 pieces of light armor, depending on if you're wearing the full monster set or just 1 piece. We are taking the monster set in light armor to take advantage of concentration, which gives us 469 penetration per piece worn. We're also going to be taking advantage of prodigy, which gives us increased weapon and spell critical chance per piece of light armor worn. Definitely grab spell warding as well, as this is going to increase your spell resistance while you have light armor on. And the other passives are nice as well, but the last 3 are the ones that you really want to focus on getting. Under medium armor, we're going to grab all of the passives because they're going to be great for our damage and our sustain. We're not wearing any heavy, so we'll ignore that. Under Fighter's Guild, we're going to grab the first 4 passives. Slayer is going to increase our weapon and spell damage by 3% for each Fighter's Guild ability slotted. Currently, we have a 3% bonus because we've got that ultimate there on the front bar. Banish the Wicked is going to give us 3 ultimate whenever we kill an enemy because we have a Fighter's Guild ability slotted. You must have a Fighter's Guild ability slotted in order to get this buff. And finally, Skilled Tracker, your Fighter's Guild abilities deal an additional 10% damage. Next, we're going to go to the Undaunted and grab both of these passives. It's going to be great for the max value of resources that you have. Your health, your stamina, and your mag pools will be bigger because of these passives. And whenever you grab synergies, you'll get resources back because of these passives. Very good for your sustain. Under Assault, you're definitely going to grab 1 point of continuous attack. Not 2, because the second point won't do anything for you as a PvEer. But if you do spend a lot of time in Cyrodiil, then go ahead and pick up that second point. Next, you're going to grab all of your racial passives. Your racial passives are usually fairly strong and fairly applicable to various types of content, so definitely pick all of them up. And then finally, under crafting, we're going to go to Alchemy and we're going to take Medicinal Use level 3. Medicinal Use is going to make it so that your potions last as long as the cooldown. Very important for increasing your sustain, as you want that 20% increased damage, you want that increased crit chance, and you want that major endurance, giving you better sustain to be up 100% of the time. Without Medicinal Use, that buff will fall off before the cooldown is over. So you'll have 5 or 10 seconds at a time where you don't have that buff up. Okay, now let's talk about the rotation of the Dragonknight. The way we're going to start off our rotation on this character is we're going to pre-buff with our Flames of Oblivion and then our Volatile Armor. Once we've got both of those up and going, we're going to go ahead and drop our Endless Hail and our Noxious Breath on the enemy. We want to get that Noxious Breath on them as soon as possible. So once we've aggroed them with our Noxious Breath, we're going to go ahead and get the rest of our dots ticking. So our Consuming Trap, and then we'll go to the front bar and get that Venomous Claw ticking, as well as your Stampede. Now all of your dots are ticking. You can go ahead and go into your spammable Carve, and you're just going to use Carve until one of those dots that we've already applied or one of those buffs that we've already applied falls off, and you'll replace one Carve swing with whichever dot or buff fell off. When the enemy gets to 30%, if it's safe to do so, stop carving and instead use Executioner. Use your Standard of Might anytime all of your dots are already ticking, or if your resources are low and you need to get them back. Use Flawless Dawnbreaker if you can't afford Standard of Might and you're out of resources. And that's basically all there is to the rotation. Keep the dots up, keep the buffs up, and use Carve as your spammable anytime all of them are ticking. Next, for the champion points, I'll go ahead and put those in the written guide down in the description below, as it's going to be a lot easier to follow them on a written guide rather than having me rattle them off to you here. If you found this video helpful, be sure to like and subscribe for more ESO content. As always, thank you so much for watching, and if you ever want to hang out with someone else who loves ESO, be sure to swing by my stream over at twitch.tv/luckyghost. You can always ask me any questions about this build that you want when I'm there, regardless of what game I'm playing that day. I hope you have a fantastic day, night, or evening wherever you might be, and I'll see you in the next video.